Authorities won't rule out manslaughter charges in the death of 2 pipeline workers in West Kowloon. Arson in a North Point subdivided unit leaves several people in critical condition at hospital. And in Iraq, more than 100 people killed in a fire at a wedding party. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Police arrested a 62-year-old contractor of a pipeline repair job related to underground facilities of the Elements Mall in West Kowloon. Earlier, 2 pipeline workers apparently died of toxic gas inhalation, and the arrest was made in connection with suspected violations of the Occupational Safety and Health Ordinance. Sources say the arrested man is the operator of Shum Development Limited, the subcontractor of the repair job. As Sharon Tang reports, authorities are not ruling out the possibility of manslaughter in the case.
Officers from the Regional Crime Unit and the Government Laboratory went back to the underground work site in West Kowloon today. Police also searched for properties that may belong to the 2 workers who died. Police located the 62-year-old contractor, surnamed Shum, in the early hours of today and arrested him on suspicion of violating the Occupational Safety and Health Ordinance. Initial investigations show the 2 workers who died had entered the underground site at around 10 a.m. Saturday, and it was not the first time they were there. The enclosed space was divided into 3 sections. The workers were originally in the first section, about 10 meters from the exit. The contractor did go in with the pair at the time, but left within half an hour. On Sunday, rescuers found the 2 workers in the 3rd section, which is 100 meters away from the exit. Between the 1st and 3rd sections are staircases and slopes. The Police Force's Assistant District Commander of Yau Chin Mong, Ga Kam Lam, said today there was water several inches deep in the 3rd section of the underground site. Officers will find out how the 2 workers ended up unconscious there. Police added several wounds were found on the workers' bodies and no breathing apparatus was found in the area. Initial findings suggest the relevant procedures for working in a confined space had not been followed. Gar added police will look into the extent of human negligence. Secretary for Security Chris Tang called the case serious and is not ruling out re-arresting the contractor on suspicion of manslaughter. Meanwhile, Secretary for Labour and Welfare Chris Sun noted employers, including contractors and subcontractors, all have the utmost duty to ensure the safety of their workers. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
A fire broke out at a subdivided flat in North Point. 4 people were injured and most of them remain in critical condition. The building concerned is Ying Wong House. Police carried out an investigation upstairs after the area was reopened. Police received a report of the fire at around 2:45 a.m. Firefighters rescued 4 people aged between 22 and 35. The fire, which was put out around 3 a.m., has been classified as arson for now. In Iraq, more than 100 people were killed and 150 injured in a fire at a wedding party in a northern province on Tuesday night. The fire ripped through the large events hall after fireworks were lit during the celebration. Civil defense searched the charred skeleton of the building for survivors into the early hours of Wednesday. Eyewitnesses said the building caught fire around 10:45 p.m. and hundreds of people were in attendance at the time. Preliminary information suggests the building was made of highly flammable construction materials, contributing to its rapid collapse. A New York judge Tuesday found Donald Trump and his family business fraudulently inflated the value of his properties and other assets for many years. This is a major defeat for the former U.S. president that could severely hamper his ability to do business in the state. Tracy Furness has more.
Judge Arthur Engoron, ruling in a civil lawsuit brought by New York's Attorney General Letitia James, found that Trump and his company deceived banks, insurers and others by massively overvaluing his assets and exaggerating his net worth on paperwork used in making deals and securing loans.
The judge ruled in a part of a lawsuit known as summary judgment. This is on the eve of a trial in a lawsuit brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. She is seeking a ban on Donald Trump and his company and many executives, including 2 of his children, from doing business in New York.
The scathing decision by Judge Engoron of New York State Court in Manhattan will make it easier for the state attorney general to establish damages at a scheduled October 2nd trial.
We are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump for violating the law as part of his efforts to generate profits for himself, his family, and his company.
The judge also ordered the cancellation of certificates that let some of Trump's businesses, including the Trump Organization, operate in New York, and ordered the appointment of a receiver to manage the businesses' dissolutions. He also ruled that Trump, his sons Donald Jr. and Eric, the Trump Organization, and other defendants made up valuations and inflated Trump's net worth to suit their business needs.
But this is by far the biggest repudiation of Donald Trump's image as a wealthy businessman and the steps that the court has said he took that were illegal in building that image of a wealthy and successful businessman, an image that really sprung him to the White House.
Donald Trump has denied any wrongdoing and has fought this lawsuit. He said that what he did was normal business practice and that he is absolved of liability. He plans to appeal Engoron's decision. Trump has pledged to keep campaigning for the White House again, despite this legal hurdle and other cases, including a criminal case in Manhattan, one in Florida, one in Georgia, and one in Washington, D.C. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. President Joe Biden grabbed a bullhorn on the picket line Tuesday and urged striking auto workers to stick with it. That was an unparalleled show of support for organized labor by a modern American president. This report from NBC News.
In a historic visit, a U.S. president on the picket line, throwing his full-throated support behind the striking United Auto Workers.
Gave up a lot, and the companies were in trouble. But now they're doing incredibly well. And guess what? You should be doing incredibly well, too.
President Biden at a General Motors plant outside Detroit, wearing a UAW hat and standing shoulder to shoulder with Union President Shawn Fain.
It's about the auto workers who are part of the fabric of the working class of this country.
The union has a number of demands, including 40% pay hikes. Today, the president said he supports bargaining for that, each automaker offering roughly 20% raises. The White House has not been directly involved in the negotiations.
Do you think the president has been as involved as he should have been during this whole process?
No, I don't.
Ford worker Tamika Ellis thinks the president should have come sooner.
I know he's busy and he has a schedule, but I do believe that because this is very huge and how it can affect the economy, that he should have been a little more involved.
His visit comes a day before Republican frontrunner former President Trump is expected here in this critical battleground state to aggressively court blue-collar workers as he skips the GOP primary debate. The Trump campaign argues the Biden administration's push for electric vehicles will end up costing union jobs.
But he's selling our automobile companies everything right down the tubes.
It's expected to be a key issue in the 2024 presidential campaign. Unions in other industries, from culinary workers in Las Vegas to healthcare workers in multiple states, are considering their own work stoppages.
Do you think this is a big moment for labor?
I think so. I think this is more than just the United Auto Workers. I think this is for the working class itself as well.
But the stakes are high. According to the latest NBC News poll, just 37% of voters approve of President Biden's handling of the economy, and Republicans have a 21-point advantage when voters were asked which political party handles it better. Phil Foster is a Stellantis worker now struggling to make ends meet at home during the strike on $500 a week. For him, the president's visit is crucial.
I'm hoping that the push from the White House helps us out. We could definitely use his support.
Russian commander Viktor Sokolov was shown on Russian state TV a day after Ukrainian forces claimed they had killed him. The man in charge of Russia's Black Sea Fleet was seen attending a meeting via video link. Ukrainian Special Operation Forces alleged the admiral was dead after a missile attack on his headquarters in Sevastopol on the Crimean Peninsula. Sokolov was seen talking about strategy with Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu on the newly released video. Russian activist Alexei Navalny is facing decades in jail after a Moscow court upheld a 19-year term. A Putin critic, Navalny was found guilty of extremism last month. Navalny was not present in court but could hear the decision from prison and was visible via video. He'll likely now be moved to a prison colony, the highest level detention center in Russia's penal system. The 47-year-old is already serving 9 years for a variety of charges he says are politically motivated. If he serves the full sentence, he will spend 30 years behind bars. A South Korean judge on Wednesday denied an arrest warrant for the country's opposition leader on broad corruption allegations, saying there wasn't a clear risk that he would destroy evidence. Lee Jae-myung was at a detention facility awaiting the decision. It is where he would have been held had the judge approved his arrest. Lee praised the court for safeguarding constitutional order, and he lamented that politics had become a war about killing and eliminating the opponent. Lee is facing various criminal allegations, including that he provided unlawful favors to a private investor that reaped huge profits from a dubious housing project in Seongnam City, where Lee was mayor for a decade until 2018. He is also accused of pressuring a businessman into sending millions of dollars in illegal payments to North Korea. Lee has denied any wrongdoing. Still ahead, Canada's House Speaker resigns over inviting a man who fought for a Nazi unit to Parliament. The Wan Chai Harborfront night market gets underway. And the return of the Wine and Dine Festival next month. Welcome back. The Speaker of Canada's House of Commons, Anthony Rota, has resigned after inviting a man who fought for the Nazis to a speech by the Ukrainian president last week. Parliament gave the 98-year-old a standing ovation when Rota drew attention to him. Canadian politicians are criticizing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for not realizing the error sooner. David Garrett reports.
The work of this House is above any of us. Therefore, I must step down as your Speaker.
Canadian Speaker of the House Anthony Rota steps down after inviting a former Nazi soldier to an event for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Rota said he brought shame on the nation and accepted responsibility.
That public recognition has caused pain to individuals and communities, including the Jewish community in Canada and around the world, in addition to survivors of Nazi atrocities in Poland, among other nations.
This is what caused the controversy on Friday with Ukraine's leader in Canada. The Speaker pointed out a war veteran who Rota described as a Canadian and Ukrainian war hero. 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka received 2 standing ovations. It turns out Hunka fought for a SS Nazi military unit in World War II. The politicians applauding him did not know, and the Speaker had not checked. Russian President Vladimir Putin says his war in Ukraine is to root out Nazis. The diplomatic blunder has caused international embarrassment for Canada, which opposes Russia's war in Ukraine. Opposition politicians criticise Canada's leaders.
The government has now admitted that they vetted everyone who was in attendance that day. Will the Prime Minister apologize for having vetted this individual and letting him come anyway?
Lawmakers of the ruling Liberal Party have urged the opposition not to make it a political issue and heap further embarrassment on Canada. But the opposition says the Speaker should not be a scapegoat for Justin Trudeau's error.
Prime Minister is responsible. He is in Ottawa today. He can get on his feet and answer for his massive diplomatic embarrassment and shame.
Trudeau greeted Zelensky when he arrived last week. The Speaker is seen as politically impartial, so not directly linked to Trudeau's party. But the Canadian leader is a supporter of Ukraine and a critic of Russia's war. Trudeau knows this is a massive diplomatic faux pas.
This was deeply embarrassing for the House
and for Canada. It is a good thing that Speaker Rota apologized personally.
Rota left the chamber to applause following his resignation, his political career tarnished. Colleagues felt the 62-year-old had done the honourable thing by stepping down. After the humiliating mistake, the Speaker had little option. David Garrett, TVB News.
A 3-year-old girl is suspected to have accidentally consumed methamphetamine at home. The police have conducted an investigation. Authorities said they received a report from Princess Margaret Hospital staff at around 1 p.m. about a 3-year-old girl feeling physically ill and suspect she ingested a dangerous narcotic. Preliminary investigations indicated the child accidentally put methamphetamine into her mouth at her home in Tung Chung. She was conscious when brought to hospital by her relatives and is currently under medical observation. Sources say the girl's father sought help from social workers after suspecting his wife was taking drugs back in July. The police have listed the incident as a case of child abuse. No arrests have been made so far. A 62-year-old divorcee stole $20 million from her brother's company and transferred it to her lover she met online back in 2016. She was sentenced to 6 years in jail today for theft. The court heard that defendant Sydney Chan was working at her brother's strategy consulting company at the time. The 62-year-old was the signatory for the firm's bank account. Earlier, the divorcee met a man named Kelvin online who promised to marry her. Kelvin claimed he would inherit a huge sum in Malaysia, but he needed some quick money. Sydney Chan then signed more than 100 checks and stole $20 million from the company to give to Kelvin. 2 years later, she told her brother, she also claiming bankruptcy. High Court Judge Judiana Barnes noted Chan's brother was going to use the $20 million for retirement and to help out his son for his wedding. Considering her guilty plea and that the case has broken her family ties, Chan was sentenced to 6 years behind bars today. A Harborfront night market is now in operation in Wan Chai. Under the government's Nighttime Economy Initiative, night markets will be set up at 3 of the city's harborfronts. The market is located near the Wan Chai Pier, just 5 minutes from the exhibition center station. Some 80 malls will offer snacks, artwork, as well as music performances and a movie session. Still, some stall owners think there is not enough promotion for the fair and there is also insufficient electricity supply. The organizer of the night market expects the problem can be fixed soon. Hong Kong's Wine and Dine Festival will make its grand comeback in Central at the end of next month after having been suspended for 4 years. The Tourism Board expects the 4-day festival to attract 140,000 visitors, similar to the pre-pandemic number. Timothy Lee tells us more.
One of the city's most popular nighttime events is set to return. The Wine and Dine Festival will be held between October 26th and 29th at the Central Harborfront event space. Around 300 booths will be set up, with the scale of the festival reaching around 80% of its pre-pandemic versions. The highlight of the event will be selections of wine coming from 36 different countries, including top-quality bottles and some rarer types. Organizers will also feature low-alcohol drinks that have become popular with young people in recent years, as well as new latitude wines or wines made in non-traditional areas coming from Thailand and the mainland. Hong Kong Wine and Spirits Writers Association Chairman Ronnie Lau noted the wine industry has been experiencing rapid development in the last 20 years, adding that mainland wine from Ningxia pairs well with lamb and steak. Meanwhile, the Tourism Board says despite having been suspended for the last 4 years, the festival is expected to receive strong support.
We are expecting to have about 140,000 visitors to Wine and Dine event this year. Basically, the number is similar to what we had in 2017. We have actually different categories for the Taste Around Town promotion, because some might want to have wine and cocktail, and some might actually prefer Western meal. And we also have another program for the Chinese. We hope the Taste Around Town promotion can actually cater different kinds of customers.
Admission fees range from $20 to $40, and ticket sales will begin on the 10th of next month. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.